What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speak. Make sure to like and subscribe as you come into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, I want to speak on. It's like Stephen A. Smith is on a tour to really to destroy Shannon Sharpe, right? Um, I don't know, man. I know Shannon Sharpe got to be sitting back wondering, like, man, are we really friends? Cause what's going on here, man? It's like, all right, so Stephen A. Smith, now he came out and he did his podcast and he spoke about Shannon Sharpe and the Shannon Sharpe situation. And when the first one he did on his podcast, the first time he spoke out on his podcast, people was like, you're not really doing Shannon Sharpe no favor, right? Because it really seemed like he was more so trying to say that, like Shannon Sharpe is innocent. I'm separating myself from Shannon Sharpe. And so people really pushed back and called Stephen A out for that. So then Shannon Sharpe comes out and Shannon Sharpe makes a statement, professing his innocence and stuff like that. Then Stephen A. Smith comes on back onto his podcast and he speaks again on Shannon Sharpe, and again, it wasn't the things he said really didn't help Shannon Sharpe out. And as a matter of fact, people were saying, like, well, why didn't you show the same energy for Shannon Sharpe and was as passionate about Shannon Sharpe's innocence as you was about Jay-Z? And so they pushing back on it. People don't see like they see right through what Stephen A is doing. And I remember that song, what was that? TLC, like what about your friends, man? Because if you got friends like Stephen A. Smith, you don't really need no enemies because Stephen A. Smith, every time he come on, he's like, yeah, he's my friend. I brought him on to ESPN. We work good together and stuff like that. Then as soon as he say that, it's all downhill from there. And so he comes on and he say stuff like, well, people want to know what I think about the situation. And so I guess that is Stephen A. Smith's reason, or that's his end to say, well, that's why I'm speaking on this situation because people keep asking me, like, what do I think about this situation? So I can't really not say anything, which if I'm Shannon Sharpe, I would prefer that Stephen A. Smith not really say anything because every time he make a statement on a situation, it don't help Shannon Sharpe, And so, like I said, if you're somebody's friend and the positions and the statements that you're making is not really helping that friend, then you really, no matter what you call yourself, you're really not a friend. And so now this last situation, Stephen A. Smith went on to Big Boy podcast. Big Boy is a podcast. He's got a radio show too, I think, over in California. And again, he makes some statements about Shannon Sharpe. Now he's criticizing people who are, people who are trying to like really trying to gloat as far as Shannon Sharpe's, his situation, and he's also criticizing people who may not be openly gloating, but people who are just trying to, just trying to make it look like I guess I told you so's and stuff like that. But the person who's doing the most damage to Shannon Sharpe, in my opinion, is and in a lot of people's opinion, is Stephen A. Smith. Even the people on what's that show called? The Breakfast Club. They say the same thing. Like Stephen A. Smith is not really doing this guy Shannon Sharpe no favors. Now, I'm not saying that Stephen A. Smith should just outright lie. If he believed that Shannon Sharpe is has done something illegally, and is guilty of these allegations, that he should just outright lie. But don't use an excuse like the people, want to hear from me, and I had to speak up on it in order to use that to throw Shannon Sharpe under the bus. Um, I just think that fortunately for Shannon Sharpe, he do have this he do have that podcast nightcap. So he can kind of combat some of the stuff that's being said about him, including Stephen A. Smith, which I don't think he probably on nightcap, he probably won't say anything about it. But just him being on his podcast and going on like, just trying to get past this situation at like almost like nothing is happening, acting as normal as possible, I think kind of helps Shannon Sharpe, and really that's really the best he can do for right now until things I guess until they handle things in court. But I want to know from you all, do you think that like Stephen A. Smith has some type of ulterior motive? Is he really like low key jealous of Shannon Sharpe and Shannon Sharpe's success? Because Stephen A. Smith said that people have been coming at him ever since ever since his interview with Cat Williams, right? And all right, so but I think that Cat Williams interview probably was like over a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. And you know, people get over that. You know what I mean? People got over that, especially the people who what's the guy Cat Williams was talking about. Like those people, they probably don't care what Shannon Sharpe is going through, but they really probably not really. A lot of people really not holding that against them. I don't think people holding that against them. Even people who didn't like what Cat Williams said on the show, they really not really, they probably passed that by now. So it just leads me to believe that maybe somebody at Disney is putting this battery in Stephen A. Smith back and got him going around to not just his podcast, but other people's podcasts, just talking about this situation and making Shannon Sharpe not look good. And Stephen A. Smith is known for going on tours and really dragging people. Stephen A. Smith, he did this with Kwame Brown. When he was going around to all those different colleges and really talking bad about Kwame, and really just dragging him and attacking him for no reason. Really, Kwame didn't do anything to Stephen A. Smith, but people see this, and they know that Stephen A. Smith is this kind of person that he'll drag you. He'll try to say that he's your friend or how much he respect you, and then once he says that stuff, it's all downhill. So, like I said, fortunately for Shannon Sharpe, he got his, he still can do his podcast and make it look like it's not normal, but I mean, make it look like everything's normal. Try to lead as normal a life as possible, because and when you up against these type of allegations and you're in this type of situation, I think sometimes it's best to work and do things or find things to take your mind off of of what's going on. So Shannon Sharpe, he already had the one young lady that's filed the original suit for the $50 million, and now an ex-girlfriend who he was with for 10 years, she's coming forward and said that she was allegedly abused by Shannon. And so that's the thing. Like once these charges start coming out against you, one person come out, then everybody else just come out the woodwork, almost like a money grab. And as far as like both of these two women, it just looked like a shakedown to me. Like the first lady, she's a felon, and it's crazy how they'll use Shannon's his past and his background against him. But this lady cheated on her husband with Shannon Sharpe, was with him for 10 years. She, they're not gonna hold her past against her. They're not gonna hold the fact that she's a felon, she's a cheat, she's somebody who's dishonest. They're not gonna hold her accountable for that kind of stuff. You know, it's all about like dragging Shannon Sharpe. And I'm not even a Shannon Sharpe fan, but I think that you should be fair across the board. Like, if you're gonna drag him for his past or bring his past into it, then bring these young ladies their past into it and question their character like you would question his character. And so yeah, man, I just think that this whole situation, and it's Shannon Sharpe's fault. He put himself in this position, messing with these kind of women who really just as shady. And I guess, I mean, it's a reflection of his character too. When you keep surrounding yourself or find yourself with in these type of situations with these type of women. Like, she dealt with the first lady dealt with him for 10 years, and she really she got questionable character, in my opinion. But that's my take on it, man. You don't really need friends like Stephen A. Smith. This guy, man. And I wonder how Shannon Sharpe. I would love to hear Shannon Sharpe really, like, what are his thoughts on Stephen A. Smith and what Stephen A. Smith is going around doing. It just leads me to believe that, like, Shannon Sharpe is probably done at ESPN. He got to be done at ESPN for Stephen A. Smith to be burning that bridge. Because if he go back to ESPN, that's going to be awkward, knowing that some of the things that Stephen A. Smith said, really didn't paint him in a good light. So that's my take on it. Hopefully, out here, we'll get to hear Shannon Sharpe what he have to say about Stephen A. Smith. But yeah, man, it's a sad situation. But all right, with that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video. Peace.